Moving to our next presenters, Dulcie Brake, Glenis Wong-Toi and Jodie Peterson from Waipapa Taumatarau, the University of Auckland. They are doing a presentation called Creating Communities, using Canvas to foster engagement and facilitate connections with and for neurodivergent students at university. So Dulcie, Glenis and Jodie are learning advisors with a collective, significant collective knowledge, and they will share their work using a learning management system to provide an inclusive learning hub for neurodivergent konga, which provides tailored resources supporting their learning. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Jodie is going to be our driver for the presentation because we are all actually in separate locations. But okay, all right, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. So yes, my name's Dulcie and I'm here with my colleagues Glenis and Jodie, and we are the inclusive learning team at the University of Auckland, and we primarily support neurodivergent students in their journey, in their tertiary education journey. So today we're just going to share with you our own journey with creating a community using the learning management system that we have at our university, and how we've found it really useful as a way of fostering engagement with and for our neurodivergent students. So just a bit of background. So we actually created the hub back earlier this year. So what we wanted was a centralised place to have all of our resources, because we have a number of tailored resources that we would share with students when they would come to see us. But we just wanted to have a central place for all of that, so that they could be more accessible, and we would have a more streamlined approach to those. So it was a way of kind of moving away. It was a way of moving from emailing individual students just those specific resources. And so what we did was we decided to use Canvas. So Canvas is the University of Auckland's learning management system. So all the students use that. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. But we wanted to use this platform because we could create one space where students could access all the information and they'd be familiar with it and so on. We felt that using Canvas would be more than, just us deciding what we were going to email them, for example. So they would have a place where they could see all the resources and decide which ones that they were going to look at. So we were kind of hoping that they would do that and also recognise that the hub is a place for them, a place for where they could find information and resources that would help their learning. We launched it at the beginning of semester 1, 2022. It was a very basic structure. We pretty much started with what they call the minimal viable product, the MVP, and we just decided to roll with that and see how it went. So just coming back to why we used Canvas, with students, so as I said, it's the learning management system, so students will be or are familiar with it because they use it for all their courses. Everything is in Canvas, so we thought that familiarity would be helpful. But the features in Canvas allowed us to do these things. So by creating a closed course, what we mean by a closed course is that we enroll students into the course, which means it's just not open to everybody. And this was sort of our beginning idea of creating a safe space. So it's just a space for that cohort of learners. Canvas allows or provides analytics on usage and engagement. So we would be able to see where students were looking, how long they were spending on the pages and that kind of thing, whereas we didn't have that when we were emailing those resources out. We just didn't know what the uptake was on those, so that was really useful. Canvas also has an announcement feature, so we were able to kind of use that to tailor communications to specific groups. So for example, and also at time of need. So for example, exam preparation, we could sort of direct students to those resources. And yeah, that follows up, the discussion board follows on from that as well. So just having a safe space where students can ask questions about whatever topic we would put up there. I think we did have one for preparing for exams. And also Canvas allowed us to organise all our information and all our resources in a variety of ways. So these modules, so you can step through, students can kind of step through in a kind of sequence, or they can just grab the pages, so they can just search for the pages. So it just sort of depends on what, you know, how they like to search for information. So that's why we decided to use Canvas for our hub. So initially, we had the idea that we would be using this as a kind of repository or a space for all of our resources. We weren't quite sure how the engagement was going to go, but we were really, really pleased that when we enrolled people, that most students accepted the invitation, because when you enroll someone, they get an invitation and then they can choose whether or not they accept that. And most students did, which means then once they do, then it appears in their Canvas dashboard alongside all of their other courses. So that was really good. The initial data, the analytics data, showed us that usage was high, which was really encouraging. And students were starting to communicate with us more via the hub. So they would sort of ask questions, respond to what we were sort of putting up there in a really small way to begin with, but it was definitely something that we weren't expecting. So that was really good. And also the Inclusive Learning Hub, as we call it, was becoming more widely known. So people were starting to talk about it. People were curious about it. So yeah, it's kind of becoming known as, you know, a real useful resource for students. So that was really good as well. So like I said, I'll just move on to Glenis, who's going to take us on to the feedback that we did. But just before she starts, we did create the first iteration of the hub for the beginning of semester 1 2022. But then what we did at the end of the semester was ask for some feedback. So I'll hand over to Glenis to take you through that part.
Kia ora, Dulcie. So as Dulcie has said, she's talked a little bit about the origins and the purpose for creating the Canvas Hub. So when we got to the end of that first semester, we decided to just canvas feedback from students. And we did that through the hub, and we just created a very simple, short Google form. So we had around 300 to 400 users at the time. So basically that was our 2022 cohort, as well as previous students from 2021 that were also studying. So at the end of that first semester, about 300 or 400 users at the time. We had 16 responses, which is pretty good, we kind of thought, given sort of general student response to feedback. So of those 16 students, 14 had looked at the hub. The other 2 that hadn't looked said they hadn't had the time to look at it. And 9 out of the 14 who had looked at it found it useful. Only 1 said they didn't find it useful, and the other 2 said they just weren't quite sure, or they hadn't had the time to explore it. So we also asked students what they found most useful, and the 2 highest responses were in terms of the announcements and then the study skills resources that we put in there that Dulcie had mentioned before. Other things that were mentioned were the sort of peer group information and some of the frequently asked questions in the thing. We also asked students what they'd like more of, what they'd like to see more of, because we were using this to sort of look at phase 2 in terms of developing the hub. So downloadable content, so PDFs, infographics, and anything else downloadable was the sort of the highest request for more, and also videos and discussion. Some of the other comments of those 3 students that mentioned other things were some study sessions, just a little bit of something a little bit different for us, I guess, and an easy link to make an appointment. So there's a bit of a history around access to an appointment with us. I won't get into that, but there's been consistent feedback about it. It'd be really nice to have an easy link to make an appointment with us, which we totally agree with, and is something that we're going to be looking at doing. So the next stage, I guess, when we had that initial feedback, was that we moved to holding more online and in-person events. So part of our process, I guess, was using this digital online tool to create more of an in-person connection for students. So we had a meet and greet session at the beginning of semester 2, which was really well attended, and we had conversations with our peer group facilitators. Since then, we've started running some procrastination sessions, and they've been very well received. We're going to be running lots of those next semester. They've sort of been our big success story, I think, of the second semester for us. And some other social type events, or where we can get students to communicate and meet with each other. So we're doing online kōrero through the Canvas hub. We've had one of those so far, and just at the end of this year had a picnic. So we're using Canvas through those announcements to try and create more of an in-person experience for students, which has been working really well. And that's been a really good positive impact for us. And we've had great student feedback in terms of some of those social events, and things for us have kind of really snowballed. It feels like a lot has happened this semester. But some of the things that students have said, particularly about those procrastinate and the social events, they've got a reason to come into university. And I think that's been quite a big issue with COVID and being at home a lot of the time. They enjoy studying with other people, having other people around, nice to have people who get it. So I know that in the previous session, Delphine talked a lot about some of the issues for neurodivergent students, and a lot of them is the sort of that feeling that people don't get what goes on for them. And I think one of our favourite comments from one of our students, who we see a little bit recently, said it's really nice to have somewhere where you can be yourself. And that's something that's really resonated with us in terms of that space that we've created via the growing kind of use of our Canvas site. So just really quickly, I'm talking too much probably, just a little bit, Dulcie talked about the advantage of having analytics. So we currently have just under 1,000 users. So remember, this is a closed group, and this is a group of neurodivergent students that have access to the site. Most of those students are using mobile devices, so that does have an implication for us just in terms of our sort of future design. And just focusing on, over 6,000 unique page views, which for us is really exciting. And particularly when we compare it to some of the other sort of hubs that we have within our service, it's got really, really high engagement, which is really exciting for us. Our most popular pages, as Dulcie said, are the announcements, and we've been really using those to announce the social events and kind of have those timely study skills information. And then you can see the information about ADHD Hangout group and obviously things around study skills, which is sort of our core business. So what I'll do now is hand you over to Jodie, who's going to talk a little bit more about the next phase. So having had a look at and using that feedback, what's next and what's in store for our hub.
Thanks, Glenis. So I think this is the point in the story that we're really at the moment. It's been a rolling story over the course of this year. And when we had all of that feedback, it sort of triggered a response from us. How can we continue to snowball the things that we have? How do we keep creating and growing that community through this online platform that we have? And one of those next steps is to refresh the Canvas hub itself. As Dulcie mentioned, it sort of started out as that minimum viable product. And for us, it was how can we take this to the next level and produce something that is even more engaging for our students and draws our students more into that online environment, and then using that to draw them into the face-to-face environment as well with us. So this was sort of the beginning of that project, the things you can see on the screen. And we did communicate with our students quite a lot. We created a end user profile. We had a digital email group that we had some feedback from, and we also used a Microsoft Teams form as well to have some feedback about what the new or refreshed Canvas Hub could look like. And we have, together with the students, co-constructed some sort of goals and things around the type of content, and around also having a long-term engagement plan. So being able to plan out having those announcements and making sure that the content on there was really up to date all the time. And some of those outcomes is the students felt it would be good to have it really pleasing and interactive, that the information would be really clearly organised and really intuitive to use, that the site would have a broad range of information that was really tailored to the specific needs of that community, and include student voice and how that's shown on the screen, and some of the sort of common things you might find. So following principles of universal design for learning, following our University of Auckland guidelines, and also we wanted to have a strong Te Reo Māori component as well. So where this sort of ended up is us using that information to create a design. The design is very complex, including many backways to the same information so that we could make things really intuitive to use. And although on the left there is sort of one page of our design concept, the way that we organised it was so that it was no more than 3 clicks to get from the landing page to any particular piece of information, and tried to make it as intuitive as we could. So you could think of something you wanted to find, a resource you wanted to find, and then it was no more than 3 clicks to get there. In the centre, that's the I guess the prototype of the landing page, where we had these little images of the different neurodiversities, and each one would be sort of an entry portal that was really specific to that particular neurodiversity. And we've popped a little example here of our dyscalculia page, which contains all the information that we might commonly send out to students with dyscalculia, as well as some additional information as well. And we had that prototype and thought, before we do anything more, let's check it again with our students and make sure that it is really fit for purpose and doing what they want it to do. And our students were very, very happy with it. Really loved we had alternative viewing options such as text only and immersive reader options for students who had different needs. Design structure was clear, felt tailored to them, felt like a safe digital space. The students felt really empowered by the positive strengths-based images and descriptions. And of course, those announcements are really key for the students' continued engagement. And so now we get to continue on with this journey and this story, and hopefully we have some more to say as things go on. And we keep growing that site, completing the new site launch in 2023, and continuing to we've got a very strong announcement plan in place now, where we know exactly what we're going to be sending out to students and when, to make sure that we keep engaging them with the site and therefore keep engaging them with the activities and workshops and things that we're planning through our service as well. I think I got through that right on time.
Done.
That was really, really awesome. Thank you, Dulcie, Glenis and Jodie. Unfortunately, again, we're kind of zipping through things and we don't have time for kōrero, but as Jessica has noted in the chat, there is the Neurodiversity SIG tomorrow at noon to continue this kōrero. So thank you very much.